Okay, as soon as I start talking, I know that they will come on with the announcements, but I will get going so that we can get going. If you're comfortable where you are, I'm sorry. You ready for this? Painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor. Where'd I leave off? Painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor. Painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor, painter. Where'd I leave off? Right here? Painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor, painter, sculptor. All right, get to your side, get to your side. Painters and sculptors, look at the screen. Painters and sculptors, split skis, split skis, split skis, split skis. Get where you're going. Get where you're going, get where you're going. It's going to become a team, it's going to be a competition. Painters versus sculptors. Wait, Madison's bringing you a page, and can I get a painter to help you out? Laney's bringing you a page. You're gonna get a card that says Leonardo. You're gonna get a card that says Leonardo. Leonardo. Just hang on to that for a second. It's gonna be a part of our game here in just a second. That was too close, Christian. I can see that. Like that.
It's okay.
No, it's a water.
Oh my.
It's just a water rain.
You can have it. What was the Renaissance and how was it discovered?
All right, babies, I need everybody to have two cards. My painter helper, my sculptor helper. Delaney, where'd you go? Delaney, underlay. All right, my friends, me more. It's gonna be a fun day. Got a couple different transitions, all of them being high energy. Hang with me as we move through the activities of today. I probably recommend no notes need to be out. Now that said, if you're a note taker, by all means, if you're a doodler, I love it, right? We give you a chance to be a doodler today as well. So probably no need to take notes today. But if there's something that you need to file away in your brain or something you do need to jot down, by all means. I mean, how often does a teacher tell you not to take notes? Of course, you do have pages due tomorrow. It'll be your Renaissance notes and your Renaissance 5W. So if you have anything that still needs to be completed, today's class information is going to tidy all that up for you. And then, of course, first thing tomorrow, when I will pick that up. So that was Mr. Swanson. Here's the back to Michelangelo. I'll be your host for today. And we are going to talk about Renaissance and Renaissance art. We're going to talk about Renaissance men. And very specifically, I'm going to give you a long lecture about my good friend Leonardo da Vinci, as well as telling you my own biography. So, students, can you tell me? Anger.
Good morning. Would everybody stand for the pledge and the moment of silence?
Wonderful American
I pledge
tradition.
allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for a moment of silence. Everyone, announcement this morning, students, we will be selling drinks and snacks during the PBIS award tomorrow. Win money. That is, we will be selling drinks and snacks during the PBIS award tomorrow. Thank y'all. Have a great day.
with Renaissance painting? Rebirth, yeah. So in time, on the timeline, what big event is the Renaissance following?
Black
The Black Death, the Middle Ages, feudalism, class concept, Black Death, the bubonic plague, bad times we like to forget about. So what are we rebirthing? What are some things we want to rebirth? Everybody now, all at once. Yeah, so we're looking back to the classics. The last times things were good, Greece, Rome, art, architecture, literature, religion, government, all these things back the last time it was good. We just want to skip over that bad period of the Middle Ages. We want to get back to the classics. We're going to rebirth the classics. And the time period we're talking about is 1300 to about 1500. And then what region of the world? Europe. Okay, I'll buy Europe. Can we get a little closer? Italy. Can I get a city? Oh, yes, Italian city of Florence, Italy. Very good. Well, I'm going to take you on an adventure today. We're going to go through a couple different clicks here. Rebirthing, right alongside Little Wayne. Rebirth.
What you know about Lil Wayne? There's two parts.
I know he got an album called Rebirth.
That's it.
A couple of different Renaissance figures on your screen. Some faces you may be familiar with, some we still have yet to get to. Next week we'll talk about that big chubby face in the middle, Martin Luther. But today, let's just refresh ourselves on what is the Renaissance. Now here's some new information for you. I didn't necessarily start with this portion last time. Marco Polo. How do you guys know Marco Polo? Polo. Yeah, that game you play in the swimming pool, right? Why do you play that game in the swim? Other than it's kind of two funny words put together. Why do you play that game in the swimming pool? Because you're looking for the other person in the pool, much like the real explorer Marco Polo was looking for something. Marco Polo. He's most known for traveling on the Silk Road and bringing the riches of Asia back to Europe. So we talked briefly about what is the Silk Road. What else traveled on the Silk Road? Quite unfortunately, disease. Yeah, but Marco Polo most likely traveled on the Silk Road. He brought back the treasures and riches and secrets of Asia to Europe, and this is kind of the beginning, some would say, of the sharing of ideas and the rebirthing of all things classical. So, Marco! There you go. Next time you're playing that game in the pool, I want you to think of the Italian Renaissance and the role that Marco Polo had in it. Let's turn the page. Aha, the printing press, invented by whom? Johannes Gutenberg. What year?
1345.
There it is, 1450, right? That's usually what my bill is at Dairy Queen, $14.50. Johannes Gutenberg invents the printing press in 1450. Well, my gosh, what is the printing press? I love it when you guys use the word in the definition. Yeah, I'll press the press. What is it? What is it good for? What is it meant? Why is it significant? Books. Yeah, the first thing printed was a poem, and then what is the most iconic print? The Bible. Yeah. So, how did we get written literature before the printing press? How long did that take?
A year.
Long time. We'll just go with long time. Printing press definitely shortened the amount of time it would take to print a copy of anything, and that allows to an easier spread of ideas and knowledge and culture. Also pretty significant is that for the first time we're printing in languages other than Latin. So there's some accessibility to the more common people as opposed to the academic scholars who speak Latin. And at this time, a little side note, we're going to keep you interested for next week. The church starts to lose its power because of the printing press. Because there's more ideas out in the world. All of a sudden, the Catholic Church is not the holder of all things knowledge-based. So the church starts to lose a lot of power based on the printing press. I've already showed you some pictures. You see the moving image there, kind of demonstrates how it looks. And then, of course, we saw Mr. Colonial Williamsburg actually going through a print job with his, goose skin ink and the two balls and all that. Yeah, pretty interesting. So, Johannes Gutenberg and the printing press. Humanism. I elaborated on humanism pretty well. What is humanism? Alexander the Great is the other H word, Hellenism, but I like what you were thinking. What is the big idea of humanism? What does it value the most?
Your life.
I think Eric's getting
You
there.
don't believe in the supernatural?
In control of instead of divine.
Humans are in control of their own fate, their own lives, their own advancements, versus the divine. So this medieval time period, as dark and negative as a lot of parts of it was, they were really focused on religious things, and God was in control, and maybe even the bubonic plague was a result of all things divine. Humanism says, you know what? Man's pretty cool too. Man has the ability to think and do. Maybe there's not a higher being out there anyway. I'm not telling you how to believe. I'm telling you what humanists started to think during this time period. Books are good. Maybe we should read and apply our own thoughts. Maybe there are more books than the Bible. Humanists would say that heaven is cool, but you know what? Books can teach us stuff too. It's okay to enjoy life on earth. Education matters. Art matters. A focus on human achievements versus just the divine. So the answer to the term is really in its own name, humanism, a focus on humans versus the divine. So pretty good review, pretty significant thought process that influences everything else during this time period. Florence, Italy, we've already discussed it as the epicenter. Renaissance starts in Florence and spreads all throughout Europe. Reason is Florence as a port city. A port city was primarily used for trade, but when you have traders coming in from all around the world, you have ideas coming in from all around the world. We talked about the legacy of the Roman roads, and yeah, the Roman roads did last for a long time, some of which are still in use today. There's some outskirts of England where the Roman road is literally still Main Street. And we talked about how modern engineers could probably benefit from learning how the Romans built the roads. But at the same time, I don't want to give you a false sense that Roman roads are perfect. Roman roads began to crumble along with the Roman Empire, right? When they weren't being cared for anymore, they deteriorated. And that made this water travel more significant again. So with the crumble of Roman roads comes the rise of port cities. And this is a kind of that perfect storm where Florence starts to become the it place for the Italian Renaissance. So chapter 1, pretty good review, right? I think you guys had that information locked down pretty well. If you felt that you needed to copy any of that onto your notes or onto your 5Ws, just gave you the information again. We're streaming on YouTube, so I'll post the video later if any of you need to catch up. Let's talk some artists. Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello. Am I talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes.
I mean, I could be, but actually the Ninja Turtles have their roots in these Renaissance artists. So next time, Saturday morning cartoons and Master Splinter is spitting some wisdom to April and the Turtles, I want you to think about the Italian Renaissance. So now you got two things that have been ruined forever. Marco Polo, the game in the pool, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because now you know that they're both related to the Renaissance. Well, to understand artists, we have to understand, have you ever heard of the starving artist? You ever heard that artists are poor, broke, and starving? Right? They're living off of cup of noodles and ramen. Why are artists poor and starving?
So much money, but they don't know how to
Eli says it's because they suck at art, which I think is the simpler way to say what Delaney said. Delaney, what'd you say?
I said, because they gotta buy that stuff and supplies, and they're not even sure if they want to sell it.
Okay, so there's a cost to being an artist, such as supplies. And hey, who's to say that my art is actually going to sell? Kurt says it takes a long time to make a masterpiece. So how do you actually make a living as an artist?
You die.
Well, you don't. That's a good thought for some of you. In this time period, the reason some of these artists were able to do their art is because they were sponsored by rich people. And these rich people were called patrons. And these days, you might think about GoFundMe, or what's another one of the Cash App things? Like what is Cash App? Yeah, but like GoFundMe and crowdsourcing and for fundraising. These days, that's a pretty good comparison, right? Podcasters. A lot of podcasters are kind of the new starving artists. They think they have a good thing going. Man, my podcast is really interesting. I got like 100 listeners this week. The only way that some podcasters can survive these days is by the donations of others. That's a comparison I'm trying to make for you. There's a very rich family with a long lineage in Florence, Italy, named the Medicis. The Medicis, and it's spelled like that. Eric has a thought or question?
No, I know.
You know about the Medicis? So the Medicis, and this was in the video documentary yesterday, if you caught it, what's the best comparison for this family?
Detroit.
The Trumps. I'll buy that. But what's a more generic family name, or not a family name, but a generic idea? Eric was really ready for the Trumps, and I buy that. The mob. They're basically a mafia, right? They were a mob. And if you want to put a family name to it, Trump, Kardashian, hey, that's another good one too. But the mob or the mafia is a pretty good comparison too. They were bankers, okay? So where the banks is where the money's is. They funded many of these artists during the Renaissance. And in funding these artists, well, they kind of had a say over what their art was going to look like, right? If I'm funding you to paint something or sculpt something, I get to influence what it is. So the Medici were really influential in what this art actually shaped out to be. Quite frankly, the Renaissance and its art probably wouldn't have happened without the Medici family financing it. Here is kind of a long line of the Medicis, and you can see that when you pay the artist, you get your portrait made as well. So the Medicis are known to history, and there's portraits of them because many of them were painted by the artists that they sponsored. Some Medicis are actually, even one Medici in particular is going to go on to be the Pope. He actually bought the position, and we're going to talk about that next week. He was not super religious. He viewed the Pope position more as a political position. He actually literally purchased the position of Pope, and he made a whole lot of changes in the church that weren't really religious-based. So we'll talk about Pope Leo X come next week. Here's another little side story. You could go on and on and on about the Medici, right? Just like The Godfather lasted 9 seasons, you could go on and on and on about the Medici mob as well. I'm gonna give you one little side story here, okay? I could pick one of 100, but I'm gonna give you one little side story. The big summary is that there's a lot of palace intrigue, backstabbing, even murder, because they all wanted to be next in line for the family fortune and such like that. Well, one of the Medicis in particular, his name is Lorenzo. He becomes the leader of Florence at the age of 20. So just like we saw King Tut become pharaoh at a very young age, he kind of inherited this position at a relatively young age. You guys aren't 20 yet, but let me tell you, when I was 20, I probably wasn't ready to lead Florence, Italy, okay? There's a maturity that comes with age, and having young people in leadership positions hasn't really worked out through history. So he becomes the leader at age 20. He is the patron of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. So he's pretty notable because he picked 2 of the good ones. You know, and sometimes these patrons sponsor guys that didn't become famous, right? He gets lucky, I suppose you could say lucky, in the fact that he sponsored 2 of the most famous ones. But he was seen as a little soft. He was seen as a little bit of a sissy, seen as weak. And rival family members attacked him, had him killed, murdered him in order to take over his position in the family. So that's pretty characteristic of a lot of Medici folklore, right? There are a lot, dime a dozen stories about the family backstabbing each other, stealing from each other, committing crimes against each other. That's why it sums up kind of like the mob or the mafia. So the Medicis, Renaissance wouldn't have happened without them. They're not exactly a very good clan. That family reunion was probably interesting. That Thanksgiving table was probably pretty sporty. How we doing? I see some of us taking notes. Need to pause for the cause? Leonardo. Christian says, let's go. All right, let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci. What is a good label for Leonardo?
Okay.
What else? A Renaissance man. Yeah, I thought you guys were about to start listing off all his accomplishments, and the fair summary is a Renaissance man, multi-talented, good at a lot of things. We're going to dive into, I'm Michelangelo, but I'm going to tell you the story of my friend Leonardo over the next couple of minutes. So there's a bit of a self-portrait. We can probably trust that that's what he looked like based off of it being a self-portrait. What I want you to do right now is locate your 2 cards, Leonardo and Leonardo. We're about to play a game I like to call Leonardo or Leonardo. Yeah, bumping with the music. So I have you divided, painters and sculptors. Where are my painters at? Painters, make some noise! Where are my sculptors at? Sculptors, tell them that you're gonna win. Painters, I'm feeling it. Painters, I'm feeling it. Here's how we're gonna play the game. You're gonna send me 1 representative at a time. I'm not gonna get into what order it is. Okay, we got about 8 or 9 parts of the game, 8 or 9 questions. So that's probably not quite enough for everybody to get a question. Just send me one new person at a time, right? Don't make me get into the weeds of trying to tell you who's coming up next. So your team sends me one representative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present an accomplishment on the screen. And you're going to tell me if Leonardo is responsible for it. Leonardo. Or, no, he didn't make that. Leonardo don't. So your representative is going to be the final vote. But your team members, you're able to chime in by showing your screen, your sign as well, okay? So give me 2 reps up front. Give me 1 sculptor and 1 painter. 1 sculptor and 1 painter. We'll make this table. Watch y'all face off on either end of the table. Jackson right here. TJ right there. All right, trash talk each other. So you don't know Jack. You don't know Jack about Leonardo da Vinci. All right, we're working on the trash talk game. Here's the first one. Pretty easy start point. The Mona Lisa. Leonardo or Leonardo. Crowd, what do you think? What do you think? All right, looking to the crowd. Contestants, do you have your final answer locked in? I got 2 thumbs up. In fact, Leonardo. That's right. Leonardo da Vinci did invent or did paint the Mona Lisa. Send me up 2 new contestants. Send me up 2 new contestants. There's a lot of intrigue behind the Mona Lisa. What is so? We got 2 new contestants. I feel the energy. I like it. After each go round, give me a chance to explain what we just did, okay? So I like the energy. I'm here for it. What is so interesting about the Mona Lisa? I don't know. A lot of people say what Colin said. Why? Get it? But the answer is, right, the worldwide intrigue is in her smile. Is she smiling? Is she not? Is that the best smile she's got? Is she trapped in a dying marriage? Does she hate her life? Is she smiling? Is she frowning? Is she happy? Is she sad? Nobody can figure it out. That is what is so intriguing about the Mona Lisa. Some people actually say that it is a single woman, right? She sat for the painting. She was the inspiration for this painting. Others will say, Eric's already beat me to the punch. Did you read a lot? I love it. Eric beat me to the punch. Other people will say Leonardo said it's a woman, but actually used a male model because there's some masculine features, right? Not feminine features in the painting. So hey, there's a lot of intrigue about the Mona Lisa. It inspires a full-on movie called Mona Lisa Smile. I'm so sorry. Good. And we just had that whole conversation. So Mona Lisa, man, y'all ever seen the Da Vinci Code? The movie or the book? You're going to see a lot of things that you might see in the Da Vinci Code. All right. 2 new contestants, Ray versus Brecken. You know, trash talk each other? A little better at trash talk?
Go, Brandon.
You trash talk before across it. You trash talk the pitcher when you're at the plate. You trash talk the batter when you're at the mound in circle. 40 feet, you'd have to holler. All right, here's the next one. Oh, happy face. Contestants, crowd, the happy face, Leonardo or Leonardo. What do we think? Got some thumbs up. I got a mixed crowd on this one. A little bit mixed. Contestants, final answer locked. They're not helping you out very much, are they? We got a mixed crowd here for sure. All right, Ray, final answer? Leonardo, Brecken, Leonardo. In fact, Leonardo, that's the correct answer. I'm pretty sure Forrest Gump is responsible for the happy face. I'm pretty sure it's Forrest Gump who made the happy face. All right, 2 more contestants. All right, trash talk. Let's hear it.
You're going down. Stop. You don't know you're not there.
Okay. How about a little bit side here? So Leonardo, he's known for the Last Supper as well. You remember I showed you the Among Us meme? I showed you the Among Us meme the other day. Very interesting, very iconic religious moment here, right? Captured. Do you think this is how Jesus and the disciples sat? They all sat on one side of the table. That'd be like a table for 24, right? Because they didn't all. I doubt that's probably how they sat, but this is how he envisioned it. Of course, that's how it is in life. Let's see what our next one is. Good? Okay, a horseless carriage, i.e. a car. Did Leonardo da Vinci invent the car? What do you think? Crowd.
Ford, I'm not here for a minute.
Carriage, i.e.
They might have had an idea of it.
Crowd, help them out. Contestants, go ahead and stand the crowd.
Do they have that kind of technology?
I think it's a walk.
I need a final answer. I need a final answer. Confused, mixed. Allie, what we got? We gotta choose. I got a Leonardo. I got a Leonardo. Nobody wants to disagree with each other. Answer is. Yeah! Leonardo da Vinci. Check it out. So this is my turn. Leonardo da Vinci, as an artist, more than just the masterpieces and the paintings and the frescoes, he was also a sketch artist and an inventor. And this, on the right-hand side, that is his own sketching, in his own hand from his own sketchbook. And what we can see, we might not call that a Ford F-150 exactly, right? But it is an early model of a self-powered vehicle, right? In a time period when animal power was important for movement, carts and carriages, this is an early self-powered moving device, i.e. you might call it a car. So really was a Renaissance man, right? Henry Ford ain't got nothing on Leonardo. All right, I need two more contestants. Why did the car come out already? Two more contestants. Who we got? Eli. Hey, he's only got 9 fingers. Hey, I need someone from this side. Eric. All right, we ready for next? Here's guy next. The light bulb, Leonardo, the light bulb.
That is
I see a pretty strong reaction from the crowd. I got some negative vibes in this room right now. I see a bunch of thumbs down. Leonardo, survey says. In fact, Leonardo, who made the light bulb?
Thomas Edison.
Not Benjamin Franklin.
Thomas Edison.
In fact, so no, we can't give Leonardo. We don't give Leonardo credit for everything. He did not invent the light bulb. My U.S. history class is at the portion in history right now where we're talking about new inventions. And if you guys know Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, you are a step towards already studying U.S. history. Discover. Let's go with discover. You go that word? Discover. In fact, he tried 10,000 different metals to get it right. Did he fail? Did he fail? Thomas Edison says, I have not failed. I just found 10,000 reasons that don't work yet. So, big idea. I haven't failed. I'm still trying. All right, moving on. I need 2 more contestants. 2 more contestants. Clap them up. Clap them up. Delaney.
Oh, yeah.
All right, great. In this corner we have Grace here. In that corner we have Delaney. Do you need some snack talk time?
Yeah.
No, are you nervous? Are you nervous? All right. What we got?
That's just motivation.
The parachute. Did Leonardo da Vinci in the 1400s?
Yes. Wait. Hey, don't show him.
It is.
What do you think, crowd? Everybody give me an answer. I see a lot of thumbs up. All right, contestants. Gracie says Leonardo. Delaney says Leonardo. In fact, the answer is, you're about to be surprised.
Don't.
Yes, Leonardo.
He did have an early sketch of no, he didn't put it into action. No, he did not invent the actual item, but he has an early concept of what is a parachute. I need 2 more. I got 10 of these, I think. Oh, who wants to put Christian in? Someone wants to put Christian in.
Hey, tell him.
Look out, guys.
Oh, you better
What's next? Oh, keeping it in aviation, the hang glider. What do you think? This one a little faster. TJ's got a strong opinion on this one. I can read it on his face. Final answer, children. What do we got? Boom. I got a Leonardo. I've got what you got, Landon? Choose. Leonardo. Answer is Leonardo. You haven't figured out yet? He's an aviation aficionado. Early sketch of a hang glider. Where have you seen Leonardo da Vinci hang gliding? That's right. Two more. I need two more.
Okay.
I want somebody to What happened? The helicopter. This might be a So parachute, hang glider, did he go so far as to invent a helicopter? What do we got? Fellas? Final answers? Final answers? Leonardo. Answer is Leonardo. Kurt, you need an escort back to your seat? Are you gonna make it safely? No. What do you mean? So again, here is the actual sketch of Leonardo's flying machine. No, he didn't make it. No, he didn't achieve human flight. Who is responsible for the first human flight?
The Wright brothers.
Hold up. So technically, he didn't invent it. He just had the idea of it.
Correct. That is what we're going for here. So powered human flight does not occur until the year 1908. So that means Leonardo da Vinci was extremely ahead of his time. How do you think Leonardo da Vinci had such an intuition about flight? His imagination. It's just truly creative. Jackson, you got a thought? What you got?
Well, I think he's so interested in it because it was that's at the time.
He was
100 years. That's what people were obsessed with. How to fly.
Jackson got a great thought. It was the grand mystery, right? Just like advancing a couple hundred years, we're obsessed with going to space. But at this time, Jackson says, hey, it's the great unknown. We haven't accomplished flight yet, so he's just really obsessed with it. Here's a big reason. Leo was very interested in flight, and he actually studied birds. He studied the way birds were able to fly. He studied the aerodynamics of their bodies and their wings. And he thought that humans can replicate that in some fashion. So in his drawings, he doesn't have just the inventions. He also has a lot of birds and a lot of flight like that. And then, of course, we know airplanes pretty much look like birds. So he might have been onto something with what he was studying. He designed many possible types of flying machines, including one that is arguably like a helicopter. Jackson, I really liked your thought. It was the great unknown at this time. So people were obsessed with trying to figure it out.
I have another thought. I think it should be referred to more as like a flying machine instead of like a helicopter.
Okay, it's rotary though.
Because of your road.
In aviation, there's fixed wing and there's rotary. So it is a rotary machine.
Well, you could have been more Pacific.
More Atlantic. All right, I need two more. Two more. Got a couple more of these. More than I realized. Got a couple more. Hey. Probably stop at cussing. Probably draw the line at the cussing. All right, here's our next one. I don't think there's anything he can't come up with at this point. So let's see. What do you think about an aircraft carrier?
That was obviously invented by the
aircraft carrier, Leonardo. Get a final answer from the contestant.
Invented by Howard Stark.
Leonardo. You don't think he's that obsessed with aviation? Aircraft. In fact, he did not. That would be next level even for him. Two more. Come on. I think there's at least three more. I'm trying to remember. Baby in. Maria. I will change your name. All right, you guys got a name for the game. Let's see how we're going. What is up next? Scuba gear. Is he interested in the
Yes, I was
water?
saying that. Like, he had so much.
Scuba gear. Crowd, what we got? Help the contestants
How sure
out.
are you from
Leonardo.
I'm glad he is interested in that stuff.
Okay, I got a Leonardo. Fabian, what you got? Fabian Nardo. No, we have a disagreement. That means someone's getting a point, someone's not. 3, 2, 1. No!
Yes!
How in the world did Leonardo da Vinci get scuba gear? Oh, look at this. This is a sketch. No, hang on. This is a sketch of what he thought people could use to go underwater. Now, free scubaing, like you think with an oxygen tank, no. They were connected to air from the surface. And this is an application, like an actual build of what his scuba gear would have looked like. Very ahead of his time, right? We are not yet even begun to touch the depths of the ocean. So the fact that he tried to invent something that was just not even close to the rest of the scientific community, very ahead of his time. And the answer is yes, Leonardo. Two more, come on. I think I got 2 more. I think it's 2 more. Could be wrong.
One D.
Your favorite Lily? Oh, God.
Because we pointed like this.
Yes, you do.
Lily, and who we chanting over here?
That's-
Gerardo. All right, crowd, are you ready? Contestants, are you ready? I hope so. Here it is. What we got? The tank. The army tank. The Vinci tank. I'm seeing Gracie's is upside down. There it is. I need everyone chiming in. Leonardo. 3, 2, 1. Answer is yes. So Leonardo's tank sketch. What exactly? It's not like this thing. He didn't have one big gun coming off the front like we think of a tank today. Where's my video gamers at? Anybody driving a tank in a video game? Leonardo's tank was circular, and there were weapons all around all 360 degrees.
Leonardo
It was man-powered. Okay, so we're not talking about gasoline. Hey, right here. This is my explanation time. We're not talking about gasoline. It's man-powered. It's basically bicycle-powered. So on the inside, you had more than one person riding like a bicycle, and that's what would power this thing to go forward. So I think it fit 11 people, if I remember correctly. Early form of a tank. What didn't this guy invent? All right, 2 more. 2 more. The light bulbs. Hey, 2 more. We can start doing some repeats. We can start. No, okay, we got newbies. So we got Madison. Thank you for playing. All right, you got your pages. What do you think could be next? What could possibly be next? Machine guns. Did Leonardo da Vinci invent the machine gun?
Yeah, what is that?
You never want to chime in. Never want to chime in. Ray says no. Ray's usually right. I got a dump. I got a do. Answer is yes!
What did he invent?
So let's look at Leonardo da Vinci's machine guns.
That has an arrow.
They were correct. They were correct. So it was not a repeating machine gun, like belt-fed ammunition. It was 8 guns welded together, and it would fire at once. So it'd be like the bullets could go all at the same time. This is another variation where they're all kind of in a row. And you could actually turn this thing so you have a repeating sets of bullets. Remember, at this time, all rifles were single shot. Took about 60 seconds to reload 1 bullet. So in terms of warfare, This was a lot of firepower that you could bring to a battlefield. We think Leonardo da Vinci was a military man? Did he like war? Was he trying to go? Give me two more. Give me two more.
We call it a rotating.
Give me two more.
A rotating gun.
Jordan, Emily, I love this is our last one. I think we've had full participation.
Yeah, either.
Let's see what this last one could possibly be. Ready? Crazy leg chopping machine for evil geniuses. Straight out of a video game. Leonardo da
I don't know why I just like
Vinci.
it.
Hey,
Final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Jordan.
What do we got?
He did, but he's not late.
I need one from everyone. I need one from everyone.
Trust us. Trust us.
No, Christian, no Christian.
Leg chopping. Contestants, final answer.
I mean,
I got it. I need a drum roll for this last one. Drum roll, please. Answer is
don't.
So what it was you see it's horse powered. There's a bit of a crank involved, so as motion went forward, you would rotate. It was designed to be in front of the chariot, so that you could, if you were to run into a formation of soldiers, the blade would go first and chop right in front of them. So, ready for this? I don't know what's really tricky.
Wait, hold on. Is that a leg chopping machine?
Leonardo da Vinci hated war. Right here, my turn. Leonardo da Vinci hated war. So Trinity says apparently not. Why do you say that? Because of all the weapons he invented. Why, if he hated war, why did he invent all these weapons? He was told to. Good God. He was paid to. Money. To make sure they won. Here's the argument. Hang with me. He invented these weapons so that people wouldn't go to war. The idea was if these weapons exist, clearly battlefields are going to become very bloody. Why would we go to war if it's just going to be mass casualties on both sides? He invented the weapons so that people would not go to war. Did it work out like that? No, it didn't work out like that. That is actually the same motivation for why the atomic bomb was built. Let's build this bomb so that we have it. When people know that we have it, they won't want us to use it on them. So we won't go to war anymore because we have the atomic bomb. Unfortunately, we used the atomic bomb. We did kill hundreds of thousands of people, and it has become a lasting impact today. So he hated war, but he thought that his invention would prevent war. Unfortunately, they only perpetuated more war. Realistically, they just created more war and more death and more destruction. Because, as you know, war hasn't stopped in the 1400s, right? We're going to march on to many more wars in the course of human history, especially in American history. This isn't the end of war technology. It's really only the beginning of war technology. And I hate to say that war technology means we're just better at killing each other. And that kind of stinks, right? So Leonardo da Vinci, oh my gosh, I forgot one more. Just stay where you're at. Humanoid robot. Did he invent a humanoid robot? The answer is yes. Little bit, not exactly artificial intelligence, but he did invent this humanoid self-moving robot. So truly a genius, a Renaissance man, multi-talented. Let me wrap up Leonardo da Vinci. We'll take our bathroom break, okay? One more field he was great in, like, are you even surprised? Science and medicine. Being an artist, he used his skills to actually sketch human anatomy. And he illustrated one of the earliest medical manuals, and it was in use for a very long time until it was updated. So very early studying of bones and organs and actual sketches of the inside of the body. He did not invent the X-ray. So he's also kind of a medical guy. I'd stop short of saying the word doctor because he didn't practice, but he was a researcher and he used his skill to illustrate medical books. Let's go back. Sculptors, you won. Hello.
No.
I disagree. Art of
Make people like you ask
Really
questions
long
like that.
people go get.
Hey, I was right. See,
I did not go up against anything.
Lily, check with your mom if you need to.
She texted Miss Vicky, or she called Miss Vicky and she said that it would be okay to drop it off at 10:30.
Oh, okay. After that. No, for real. Vicky said it, it's true.
Or second, sorry.
All right, welcome back to the Italian Renaissance. All right, guys, I'm starting to tell the story of me, Michelangelo. We'll go a little bit faster because we had a good time with Leonardo or Leonardo don't. We go a little faster. So let me tell you about myself, Michelangelo. Michelangelo was a Renaissance man, just like these others we've talked about. He actually saw himself as a sculptor. That's why I divided you guys into painters and sculptors. He saw himself as a sculptor, but he had such a world-class talent at painting, he very often got commissioned or he was sponsored to be a painter. But he really, push come to shove, he would say, I want to do sculptures, quit hiring me to do paintings. But yet some of his paintings are these world-class masterpieces we still talk about today. So this is David with boxers on.
Wow.
This is well, because it's naked.
Oh,
Without the boxers, it would not be. It would be a human anatomy, to say the least. So that is David with boxers on. And here are some other Leonardo da Vinci sculptures. He was known for taking a long time, being very deliberate about selecting the right piece of marble. He would go to the marble quarry. He would see the marble that was being cut out of the earth, and he would make sure his piece of marble had no blemishes on it. It had the right marbling, the right coloring. He would stare at it. He would just study the hunk of marble, and he would see the finished piece. He would see the masterpiece that would still take months or years to create. But in this hunk of marble, he would see the finished piece. So here are two more that he created. That is Jesus on the left, and that is Moses on the right. And you can just imagine how large these chunks of marble were when they were still in block form. And then imagine, I'm not an artist, right? I'm doing the best I can to describe art to you guys. But imagine removing fractions of marble, hundreds of thousands of hammer strokes in order to get the perfect piece of marble. Michelangelo also created the Pietà, which is the Mother Mary holding dead Jesus that I showed you earlier this week. So that is also one of his marble creations. Here's one of his most famous paintings. This is the Sistine Chapel ceiling. He painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Took him 4 years. And what you see on the ceiling is an unfolding of the Bible's Old Testament. Okay, so the Sistine Chapel is actually the Pope's home church. Just like, your pastor is the pastor at First Baptist Alma, right? Well, the Pope's home church, now the Pope travels, of course, but the Pope's home church is the Sistine Chapel. So in the 1400s, the Pope commissioned Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And he actually did it with a brand new technique. It's called fresco. And it wasn't just your basic watercolor. Okay? It wasn't your average paint. It's actually very oil-based. It required 2 coats. I'm not going to get into the science too much, but this fresco technique of painting was new at the time. And what was good about it is that it was supposed to be long-lasting. Now, they just couldn't necessarily test it, right? Because none of them, they all outlived their masterpieces. But we can see this thing has lasted 500 plus years.
He didn't really want to do it, did he?
What's that?
He didn't really want to
You're right, Eric's exactly right. Remember, what did he see himself as? Sculptor. So the Pope, this is very interesting. These days, you probably see the Pope as a very important, powerful figure. If the Pope told you to do something, especially if you're Catholic, you're going to do it. Michelangelo, he actually got in a little spat with the Pope. The Pope said, hey, artist guy, I want you to paint my ceiling. He's like, nah, man, I'm not going to be able to fit that in this year. It's like, no, Michelangelo. Pope, me, Pope. you're gonna paint my ceiling. Long story short, I'm paraphrasing, but he actually got into a bit of a dispute with the Pope over painting the ceiling. Now, in the end, he did, and it becomes one of his greatest masterpieces. He saw himself as a sculptor, but he's perhaps most known for this painting. So let's look at how long the ceiling is. I think this slide is going to move. It's a long building, like a rectangle, almost like a football field, and he painted the whole top to bottom. He painted the whole width and depth of the ceiling. So the Sistine Chapel. I think that's the last slide. Painting on the ceiling of the church, 4 years. He didn't want to do it because he was forced by the Pope, and it wasn't easy. Let me click to another set of pictures here.
Did he do it laying on his back? Yeah, he was like this.
So this is the Sistine Chapel exterior. If you were to look at this building, I mean, what's your initial impression? Black, right? Brown, square, rectangle is what it is. Looks pretty boring on the outside, but you can see the lengthy shape of it, right? You can see the rectangle shape, and on the inside is the Sistine Chapel. This is, I'm pointing out a little something here. Who's been to Disney World before? Opportunity to go to Disney World?
Nope, never been.
At Epcot, Epcot's the one with the big ball. At Epcot, if you actually go inside the big ball, that ball right there, the ride is called Spaceship Earth. And what it does, guys, this is really cool. Should you get a chance to go to Disney World in the future, this ride is basically my world history ride. If you ride this ride, it goes kind of a spiral all the way up this globe. So imagine being, you're in a little carriage, and ultimately you're this high up in the air. It takes you through world history. And one of the portions it takes you through is Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, and it shows him painting on his back. It's a little animatronic, like Disney great, and it moves a little bit. Legend has that he laid on his back to paint the ceiling. Now, Michelangelo's own, and this is a bit of a modern art piece that kind of shows exactly that. And you can imagine if I'm gonna reach the top, there's probably some paint dripping down on me. Legend holds that he painted on his back. Michelangelo himself actually sketched this more like he was standing up, craning his neck in order to do the art. So this might be a representation of that. Truth probably somewhere in the middle. Okay, there definitely was scaffolding, like you see here, that to help him get to the top. Was he laying on his back? Was he standing and craning his neck? Truth's probably in the middle. Suffice it to summarize it as it was difficult. It took 4 years, and quite frankly, it probably took years off of his life. To be in this position, whether standing up or laying flat, to paint for darn near 4 years of your life, took a big toll. It wasn't easy. So on his back, standing up, craning his neck. Point is, it was very difficult to paint the Sistine Chapel. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to paint the Sistine Chapel on your back.
There's no one way to go back.
We're going to get underneath your desk.
There's no under there.
I'm going to give you some tape.
There's gum under there.
You're going to tape the picture I give you underneath the desk. You are going to Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you are.
I'm looking
Guess what? Now, hey, I believe in challenge by choice. Okay, it's a life philosophy. I'm not listening. I'm not gonna force you. I'm not gonna flat out force you. But I would like you to embrace the challenge a little bit. I do understand picture day and hair and outfits and all that kind of stuff. But if you're willing to embrace the challenge, you could alter it a little bit like this, and maybe you're sitting, still sitting up a little bit. But I would like you, at a bare minimum, I would like you to tape it to the wall and color a little bit standing up, okay? So I'm gonna let you choose, but I've had students have a lot of fun with this in the past. And so first thing first, I'm gonna let you choose your painting. Here's the colors. I'm gonna give you a stretch of masking tape, and you guys are gonna be off to the races. Ready, set, go. Paint the Sistine Chapel. Yeah.
Right, you alright, buddy?
Good. So, get to it. Passing out some tape. Try to share with your partner. You don't need a full stretch of tape, probably just a couple of corners. Just a couple of corners. This is what we're doing the rest of the hour. Okay, have fun with it. Grumble, 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 grumble. Students usually settle in and have a really good time doing this activity. Okay. At a bare minimum, I'd like you to tape it to the wall. Paint standing on the wall.
I'm gonna do it under the desk.
Or under the desk would be really embracing the activity.
Wait, so what's this?
Color,
Can I use this?
Coloring colored pencils. So you can move the desk around, get cozy.